I left my cabin for 2 weeks, just two. When I came back early, there were strangers grilling steaks on my deck, drinking beer from my fridge, and Karen from the HOA waving at me like she owned the place. But when the cops came and I showed them my name on the deed, it wasn't just the BBQ that ended. It was her entire reign. You can live a quiet life and still find chaos waiting for you when you get back. I'd only been gone 14 days. 14 days in the city, dealing with lawyers, documents, and probate papers I never wanted to sign. My uncle passed, and I was the only family left. So I packed light, locked my cabin, left the porch light on like always, and drove out, thinking I'd return to silence, birdsong, and the kind of peace only pine trees can offer. Instead, I came back to laughter. Not the good kind. Not the kind that makes you smile from the driveway. No, this was the loud, drunk, entitled kind. Music blared from a Bluetooth speaker on my deck. Smoke curled into the air from a large black grill that definitely didn't belong to me. Half a dozen people lounged on fold-up chairs with red Solo cups and paper plates piled with meat, and standing right in the center, flipping ribs like she owned the forest, was Karen Lee, the self-appointed queen of the Willow Acres HOA. She wore her usual uniform, big sunglasses, expensive sandals, and an expression like everything in the world was just slightly beneath her. I pulled my truck in slowly. She turned, sipped her wine, and waved, like we were neighbors catching up, not like she was trespassing on my home. I parked, stepped out, and didn't say a word. Not yet. Didn't expect you back so soon. Karen said brightly, her voice dripping with fake warmth. We thought you were gone another week. I asked, flat. She gestured to the crowd behind her, a man in khakis, two women in sundresses, and a teenager wearing earbuds, scrolling his phone while sitting on my porch swing. Board members. Friends, she said. We've been hosting little meet and greets here, showing them how community feels when it's done right. I stared at her. She just sipped again. The deck is lovely, by the way. Shame it was going unused. I walked past her, slow and steady, opened my front door, unlocked, somehow, and stepped inside. My boots froze on the entry rug. Empty. Cans lined the kitchen counter, shoes, socks, plates in the sink. Someone had left a cooler open, dripping, onto the floor and on the fridge. A WHITEBOAR. It read, Karen's crew, use whatever. Just clean up. I turned around, walked out. Karen was still smiling. I hope you don't mind. We tried to be respectful. HOA Clause 12.4. Community access to shared rustic spaces. It's in the handbook. You really should read it. There's no clause like that, I said. Maybe not yet. She winked. But there will be. We're just getting started. She clapped her hands. All right, everyone, we're packing up. Miles is home. Sooner than expected. People chuckled. One woman even said, nice place. You should open it up more often. I didn't respond, not yet, because I wasn't done surveying the damage. That night, after they finally cleared out, I walked through every room. My guest towels were used. My firewood pile picked through. 2 of my old Army medals, not displayed, just stored, had been pulled from their box and left on the table like party decorations. My chest hurt. Not rage, not even grief. Just that hollow, shaking feeling you get when something sacred is touched by people who'll never understand what it meant. I sat on the edge of the bed and thought of my brother. He helped me build this cabin, hammered these floorboards with me before the cancer took him. We buried his uniform out behind the oak tree with a photo of us on this porch, beers in hand, shirts soaked in sweat from building something with our own damn hands. And now Karen had let strangers drag mud across this floor like it was a vacation rental. The next morning, I went to the sheriff's office, filed a report, broke it down, trespassing. Forced entry, property misuse. Sheriff Martin looked over the pages slowly. "You've got a case here." "I don't want them arrested," I said. "I want it documented. I want a paper trail." He looked up. "He planning something?" I met his eyes. Only the truth. Because Karen thought this was over. She thought she could laugh it off, wipe her shoes, and move on. But she hadn't. Just invaded my space. She'd cracked something sacred, and what she didn't know. I still had the original cabin deed signed by my brother and me, and the land she'd been treating like hers. Half of it wasn't even in HOA territory. She'd just redrawn maps no one questioned, but now I was back, and I wasn't going anywhere. The local hardware store was quiet that morning. I went in for wood screws and left with something heavier. Whispers the guy behind the counter. Jim, an old-timer with gray sideburns and slow eyes, leaned in when I dropped my stuff on the register. "You back full-time now?" I nodded. "Hear about the BBQ?" "I was there," I said flatly. Jim raised his brows. "Didn't know that was your place." Karen made it sound like it was a vacant listing. Said she had keys from a board member. "Keys?" I asked, jaw tensing. "Yeah," he shrugged. "Said it was under maintenance. That she was watching it for the owner. Didn't know it was you." I didn't say anything. Just paid and left maintenance. She called my home vacant property under maintenance. That explained the open door. Someone gave her keys. A poo. I had a guess. Back home? I pulled out the HOA welcome packet I was kindly handed when I first moved in, the one I'd tossed into a drawer without reading at the very back. Tucked between two folded newsletters was the list of board members. Her friends mostly, but one name stuck out. Ethan Cole, younger guy, early 30s. I remembered him from the BBQ. Quiet, awkward, didn't say much. Spent most of the evening scrolling through his phone. I also remembered him fumbling with a set of keys, opening the cooler like it was his. So, I paid him a visit. Ethan lived 2 roads over in a newer house, the kind with fake shutters and solar panels. I knocked. No answer. Knocked again. Eventually, the door opened an inch. Just an inch. He peeked out like a guilty teenager. "Oh, hey. You gave Karen a key." His face went pale. "Look, man, I'm not here to start something," I said calmly. "I just want the truth." He hesitated, then stepped out and closed the door behind him, lowering his voice. "She told me it was temporary," he said. Said the HOA had permission. You'd agreed to share the cabin for community use when you signed the annual update. I thought it was weird, but I never signed anything. He blinked. "Seriously?" I shook my head. His mouth dropped slightly. "She said it was standard. I mean, she had a document." I leaned in. "You gave her a master key?" "No, not exactly. I manage the backup lockboxes for the HOA, one for emergencies. She asked for temporary access while you were out of town. Said it was for inspection and security presence. I didn't think she meant he swallowed a barbecue." I stared at him. Ethan sighed. "She's been pushing hard lately. More rules, more power, more everything. Why? I don't know. I think she's trying to build something. She mentioned turning part of the HOA territory into a rentable wilderness retreat. Curated cabin experiences." I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. She's trying to commercialize private homes. She hasn't filed anything official. Just whispered ideas. But you weren't the only place she scoped. I took a deep breath, stepped back. "I need everything," I said. "Emails, messages, anything that shows she accessed my place without permission. I'm not trying to get in trouble, man. You're already in it," I said. "The difference is which side you're on now." He didn't argue. He just nodded once. I gave him my number and left by evening. He'd emailed me for screenshots of Karen's messages, one of them with an attached PDF labeled HOA Special Use. Addendum. It was fake. There was no signature. No TIMESTAMP. No legal seal. Just a doctored letterhead and a blank space where she'd forged my agreement. I printed it, pinned it to my corkboard right beside the photo of my brother and me holding up the first plank of the porch, him laughing, sweaty, sunburned, holding a hammer in one hand and a soda in the other. I remember that day. He'd said, "If anyone ever touches this place, we get to bury 'em under the fire pit, right?" I'd laughed. Didn't. Laugh now because this wasn't just misuse. This was fraud. And I had proof. I took a drive after sunset, needed to clear my head. The gravel under my tires was familiar. So was the wind. But the ache in my chest wasn't about the law. It wasn't even about Karen. It was about loss. When you build something with someone who's gone, the building becomes a body. The boards carry their voice. The doorframe remembers their laughter, and when someone like Karen walks through it, muddy boots, wine glass in hand, they don't just ruin property, they desecrate memory. I stopped at the overlook, where my brother and I used to camp before the cabin was finished. The stars were out. The pine trees whispered secrets. Tay. And I whispered one back. I'll protect it now. Anna would. Karen had crossed the wrong line this time. And the only thing more dangerous than a man with nothing left to lose, is a man who's already lost everything once and won't let it happen again. You don't win wars by shouting. You win them by letting your enemy think you're not fighting at all until they're standing on a trap door. And Karen, she had both feet on it. Ethan's screenshots were just the start. I spent 2 full days reviewing every HOA document I could get my hands on. Scanned PDFs, newsletters, agenda minutes, even buried attachments from old email chains passed to me by Grace, one of the only board members with enough spine to stand quietly in the background, instead of licking Karen's boots. And then I found it in a dusty, scanned attachment. Dated April 1999, buried in an appendix nobody bothered to look at anymore. A clause titled Section 3.2a, Non-Interference Zone Clauses Heritage Parcels. All properties registered before the HOA's establishment pre-2001 and falling within the original land trust boundary are immune to administrative actions without express written consent of the property owner or direct county intervention. My cabin, built in 1997, purchased jointly by me and my brother, who is a legal resident of the county from birth. The land, inherited, documented, recorded, my parcel fell exactly inside that clause's protection, which meant every action Karen had taken, fines, entry, BBQs, forged agreements, wasn't just unethical, it was illegal. I printed the page, highlighted it, attached it with the emails, Ethan's texts, the false community use addendum, and my original deed signed in '97. And then I sent it with a quiet, polite subject line to the County Records Board, Planning Office, and Code Enforcement Division. No threats, no drama, just truth. And once you release truth into the wild, it runs faster than fear. By Friday, I got the first reply. This appears to be a clear violation of County Land Use Regulation, Section 1406B. We are forwarding to legal. By Saturday, my inbox had 2 more. Can you confirm you never signed the shared usage form? Did Karen Lee present herself as a representative of the board during this access event? Yes, and yes. Sunday morning, Karen showed up. Uninvited, of course. She didn't knock. Just walked up the porch like she was still queen of the damned. I was splitting firewood in the yard when she spoke. "You've caused a lot of chaos this week," she said calmly, folding her arms. "The board is in panic. Didn't cause it, I replied. I just shined a light on it. Her jaw twitched. I don't know what kind of war story you're trying to recreate out here, she said, but you need to understand that this is a community, and communities need order. You don't want order, Karen. You want obedience. She stepped closer. Lowering her voice, I know what you're doing. The county's sniffing around. The board is fracturing. But here's the thing. I can fix this. I can end it quietly. No press, no legal mess. You just sign one document. One agreement. Retroactive usage. Shared access. It goes away. She pulled a folder from her bag, held it out like a piece. Offering, I didn't take it. She waited. Then said the wrong thing. It's just a cabin. Miles, you're acting like we desecrated a church. I looked her dead in the eyes. You didn't desecrate a church. Pause. You walked barefoot across a grave. Her face froze. She opened her mouth, but no words came out, and this time, I stepped forward. You thought I was just another quiet ex-soldier with a sad backstory and a run-down cabin. Easy to scare, easy to push. But you made one mistake. I leaned in just enough for her to feel the weight of what was coming. You walked into a place built by memory and tried to rewrite the story. I turned my back on her. She didn't follow. Didn't say a word. Just stood there, folder in hand, until she turned and walked back to her SUV. Like a funeral guest who'd shown up late and realized the coffin was already buried. But she wasn't done, not yet, because the next day, Ethan called. Karen's called an emergency meeting, he said. Trying to rewrite part of the HOA charter removes Section 3.2a entirely. She can't, I said. It's protected by original incorporation law. She doesn't care. She's scrambling. She thinks if she moves fast enough, the county won't act. I smiled. They already have. Because while Karen was drawing up fake forms in her dining room, county enforcement officers were reviewing every file she ever submitted, and one of them recognized her signature from a permit approval denied 2 years ago, a forgery by Monday. I received an official email. Karen Lee was under formal investigation for falsification of records, unauthorized property entry, and HOA abuse of power. She wasn't suspended yet, but the walls were cracking. And this time, she didn't have enough lies to patch them all. That night, I lit a fire outside, cracked open a worn bottle of whiskey my brother had left behind, and sat under the stars with the porch light off. Not to celebrate, just to breathe, because sometimes the best revenge isn't fire or fury. It's the slow return of quiet. I didn't go to the HOA's meeting. Didn't need to, because the moment Karen tried to rewrite the charter and erase Section 3.2a, the county shut it down with a single reply. This clause is legally protected under founding articles. Any attempt to remove it without unanimous consent and court oversight will be considered fraudulent. That was the end of it. On paper. Anyway, but Karen wasn't built to lose. And when people like her feel their world tilting, they don't surrender. They fracture, according to Ethan, who is now attending meetings just to report back to me. Karen lost 2 board members that night. Grace resigned publicly. Another simply stopped showing up. Whispers started circling the neighborhood. She forged what? She entered whose cabin? She called it community use. The mask was slipping. And beneath it, a woman terrified of becoming irrelevant. The next morning, a for sale sign appeared outside the Johnson house, one of Karen's closest friends. 2 days later, another board member took down her flagpole and quietly removed the HOA sticker from her mailbox. And Karen, she disappeared. No more pop-ins, no more warnings. No SUVs slowly rolling past my gate. She was still in the neighborhood, but only just, like a ghost that hadn't realized it was already buried. I thought that would bring me peace, and it did. mostly until I got the letter. It was in the mail, no return address, just a plain envelope. The paper inside was lined, folded clean, and written in blue ink. At first, I thought it was Karen, but the handwriting was too soft. Then I read the first line. Dear Miles, I don't know if you remember me. I used to sit behind you and your brother at the church back in '03. My hands froze. The letter went on. Her name was Eliza Monroe. She was a friend of my brother's during a hard year, one I barely remembered, 2 lost in deployments and hospital visits and trying not to fall apart. She wrote that she'd recently visited the town, stopped by the cemetery, and noticed something. The small bronze marker at my brother's memorial was missing. It must have been kicked or loosened, she wrote. Maybe in the weather, but I didn't want to leave without letting someone know. I folded the letter carefully, sat down in the living room, and stared at the wall for a long time. I hadn't been to the memorial since the barbecue. I'd been so caught up in the fight, the fire, the paperwork, the quiet war, I hadn't visited his tree, his bench, his photo. I put on my jacket and walked. It was a short hike behind the cabin, down the slope where the pines grew tight, and the trail narrowed into something barely wide enough for a deer. At the base of the path stood the elm tree, the one we planted together when he got diagnosed. His ashes were scattered there. A wooden bench sat nearby, and next to it, a stone plaque set in the ground, edged in bronze, and just like Eliza said, the bronze nameplate had come loose. It wasn't gone, just tilted, like someone had stepped too close and caught it with a boot. I knelt down and touched it. Dirt clung to my fingers. I didn't speak, just breathed, and for a few seconds, everything else disappeared. Karen, the HOA, the forged forms, the lawsuits, none of it mattered because all I could hear was his voice. This place will outlive both of us. It had barely, but it had. I reset the marker, wiped it clean, then sat on the bench and stayed there until the shadows grew long and the breeze turned sharp. I didn't cry. Not really, but something inside loosened, like a knot that had held too long, finally letting go. And that's when I knew. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about restoration, about setting things right, not just for me, but for the people who never got to finish what they started. The next day, I contacted the county again. Not to press charges, not to escalate, but to petition for full independence from the lot, my land, and the Bakers. And Grace's all fell within the heritage clause, which meant we had the right to separate, to dissolve our lots from the governance of Karen's crumbling empire. The county confirmed it. All we had to do was sign, so we did. One by one, quietly, no press, no noise, just freedom, sealed in ink. And when the new boundary map came back, Karen's house was alone, the only structure still legally bound to her own rules. The queen had lost her kingdom. Now she ruled no one but herself. That night, I lit a fire on the porch. Not a victory fire. Not for gloating, but for memory. I cooked 1 steak, poured 1 drink, set 1 extra plate on the railing, just like we used to do, and I whispered into the night. I got it back. I didn't hear her voice. I saw it in a headline. One of those trashy local opinion pieces printed just often enough to stir up old fires. This one was posted under the Community Concern section of the Willow Valley Tribune, buried between a yard sale announcement and a recipe for cornbread. But it was unmistakably her. The cabin that broke a neighborhood. How HOA enforcement became a witch hunt by anonymous concerned resident. The article didn't name names. Didn't have to. The language was so thinly veiled, it may as well have been signed with red lipstick and a wine stain. She claimed she'd been publicly shamed, misunderstood, and pushed out of leadership by a certain veteran property owner who had emotional instability and a grudge against female authority. I didn't know whether to laugh or burn the paper. Karen had gone from tyrant to martyr in one season flat. The article ended with a call for civic compassion and renewed support for women in leadership roles, even imperfect ones. I folded the paper and placed it gently on my workbench. Then I pulled out my phone and called Grace. "Did you see it?" She sighed. "Saw it. So did everyone else. She's trying to flip the narrative." Grace paused. "Miles, I don't think she's just trying. I think she's succeeding." By noon, I knew what she meant. A handful of Facebook posts started circulating, some from neighbors I barely knew, echoing Karen's claims. She made mistakes, but she cared. She brought structure to a messy community. I never had a problem with her until he moved in. One even accused me of using my military past as a weapon, calling it emotional manipulation through uniform sympathy. That one stung more than I expected. I didn't wear my service on my sleeve. Never had, but I wasn't ashamed of it either. It was just part of me. Like the scars, like the quiet mornings, like the dog tags still hanging on the rearview mirror. That night, I sat on the porch longer than usual. Didn't light the fire, didn't pour a drink, just listened. The wind didn't say much, and neither did I. Thought about my brother, how he'd handled this. He wouldn't have written a rebuttal. Wouldn't have gone door to door defending himself. He would have done what he always did. When the noise got loud, built something. So I built. Not a fence, not a sign, not another document folder. I built a small stage, 10 feet wide, right in front of the barn. Then I sent a message. Not online, not in paper, in person. I went door-to-door, invited the Bakers, Grace, Ethan, even the ones who had started to doubt me. I told them I wasn't calling a meeting. I was telling a story. The next evening, under the glow of barn lights and the smell of pine, about 40 people gathered on folding chairs and hay bales. Some came out of curiosity, some out of support, some just because there was nothing else going on in town that night. I stepped onto the stage, not with a microphone, not with a script, just with a photograph in my hand. It was the one of me and my brother. Sweaty, laughing, hammers in hand, porch half built behind us. I held it up. "This is the only reason any of you know my name," I began quietly. "Because of this porch, because of this land, because of this cabin." I paused. The crowd was still. "My name is Miles Harris. I served 15 years. Lost a brother, lost a wife. And when I came back here to rebuild my life, I wasn't looking for power or pity. I was looking for peace." I looked out at them, not at Karen, who I knew was standing in the back. Sunglasses on, even at night. But peace can be hard to find when someone with power believes they're above consequences. When they believe they own what they never built. When they step into places filled with memory and try to erase them. I stepped down, walked over to the front row, handed the photo to Grace. That porch was built with love, not control. Then, I turned to Karen, still halfway in the shadows. "I'm not here to humiliate anyone," I said. "But I won't be ashamed of defending what's mine." She didn't respond, didn't run, just stood there, frozen, when the night ended. I sat on the porch again, only this time, I wasn't alone. Grace brought pie, the Bakers brought stories. Even Ethan sat down and shared how Karen once fined him for having mismatched patio furniture. We laughed. A real laugh, not at Karen, just with each other. For the first time since I came home. The valley felt like community, not because someone demanded it, but because we chose it. The sun was rising when I heard the knock not at my door. On wood, from a hammer. I looked out the kitchen window to see 2 men city workers kneeling beside the entrance to Willow Acres, where a carved wooden HOA sign had once hung proudly. They weren't painting it. They were taking it down. Sawdust fluttered into the morning air like ash. I stepped onto the porch and just watched. By mid-afternoon, the sign was gone. All that remained were 4 bolt holes and a fading square of sun-bleached wood. No plaque, no Karen, no HOA. Just neighborhood. Grace texted me. It's official. County finalized the separation. HOA. Dissolved permanently. Your name's clear. It should have felt like victory, and it did. But it also felt like ending. Not just of a fight, but of a chapter. That night, I made coffee and walked the trail down to the bench behind the cabin. The elm tree swayed slowly in the breeze, the memorial plaque freshly polished after last week's visit. I sat and closed my eyes. No. Courtrooms, no CLIP, BOARDS, no forged forms, no noise. Just the wind, the same one my brother used to whistle into when he didn't know. I was listening. Sometimes I still hear it. 2 days later, Karen packed up. No farewell. No apology, just a U-Haul and silence. Ethan said she listed the house below market value, fast sell. No one waved when she left. No one followed her out the driveway. Her empire didn't fall, simply evaporated. I watched from the distance. Not to gloat, but to make sure it was real. And it was. She drove out of the valley on Thursday and never came back. But something unexpected happened that weekend. The town had a barbecue. Not in protest, not in resistance, just a barbecue. Grace hosted it in her backyard. The bakers grilled. Ethan brought drinks. Someone set up old string lights and a Bluetooth speaker that played nothing but Willie Nelson and cicadas. And me. I didn't know if I should go. I wasn't good at celebrations anymore, not after so much loss. So many battles, the kind that don't always leave visible scars. But Grace left a paper plate on my porch that afternoon, wrote across it with a marker, "No more ghosts, come eat." So I did. When I showed up, people didn't cheer. They didn't line up to thank me. They just made room, handed me a plate, pulled up a chair. Someone tossed me a beer and said, "About time you joined us." And suddenly, I wasn't the guy who fought the HOA. I was just Miles, the guy who lived at the edge of the woods. The one with a rebuilt porch. The one whose brother everyone remembered quietly but fondly. Later that night, Ethan came over and asked, "You ever think of joining the town council?" I laughed, harder than I had in years. "No," I said. "I think I've done my paperwork for this lifetime." He smirked. "Fair." Then he added something I wasn't ready for. "But if you ever did, we'd vote for you. Not because of speeches, but because of steadiness." That word stuck with me. Not strength, not revenge. Steadiness, maybe. That's what this land gave me. Not power, not pride, just the ability to stay. Still, when the world pushes, pulls, lies, threatens, I stayed. And that outlived Karen. Outlived the HOA. Outlived everything she tried to twist. I walked home late, stars above me. Dirt underfoot. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty, just earned. I opened the door, hung my jacket, turned off the porch light, and paused. The copper wind chime by the window gave a soft little ring. I smiled, then said out loud, "You were right, Ellen. The world did stop spinning." Spring came early that year. The frost melted a little faster. The stream behind the cabin ran louder. The grass along the porch line, the same grass. Karen, once cited as non-compliant, bloomed naturally into green waves. It felt like the land was breathing again. So was I. I spent the first warm morning rebuilding the flower bed Ellen used to love. I hadn't touched it in 2 years. Too many memories. Too much ache. But that morning, the soil was soft, and the sun hit just right. So I got to my knees and dug not to bury pain, but to plant something better. I found her old tin watering can in the shed. Faded daisies painted on the side. I smiled when I saw. It's still intact. Still waiting like everything else here. It just needed patience. And now, finally, it was safe to grow again. By April, the cabin looked like it used to. Not perfect, but real. Porch swing freshly stained. New curtains in the kitchen. A second rocking chair next to mine, not because someone would sit there, but because it reminded me to leave space for peace. I carved a new sign for the trail. That led to my brother's memorial, just a piece of pine wood nailed to a post. Still with me. 3 words, more than enough. One night, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten. Slanted cursive. It wasn't Karen, it was her daughter. She wrote that her mother had moved into a small condo 3 counties over. No HOA, no neighborhood boards. Just a quiet street and a garden she was trying to keep alive. She said Karen had been different lately. Quieter, reflective. She said Karen had told her she was wrong about a lot of things. And then the line that got me. I think watching someone defend something sacred reminded her of everything she never built. I read the letter twice, then folded it up and tucked it inside the old deed. Not out of forgiveness, but as a marker, proof. That some battles don't end with applause, they end with understanding. And sometimes that's enough. The town asked me to speak at Memorial Day that year. First time since I moved back. I wasn't sure at first. I never liked podiums. But Grace asked, with that tone that didn't leave room for no. And I knew what my brother would have said anyway, so I stood in front of the flag. Under a pine tree that had watched both wars and weddings come and go, and I told a story. Not about battles, not about property, but about a porch, a wooden one built by 2 brothers with tired hands and matching boots. 1 hammer short and 1 memory long. I told them what it meant to fight for something small, something no one else understood. A bench, a chime, a photo on a wall. And I ended with this. The world doesn't always take things violently. Sometimes it chips away, fades memories, forges signatures, plays music on your porch like it always belonged. But if you hold the line, if you stay, it remembers. Because land isn't just soil, it's story. When I finished, no one clapped right away. They just stood. Some with hands folded, some with tears, but all of them quiet. Listening, and in that silence, I heard it again, the wind across the cabin ridge. Chime, chime. Summer rolled in soft. The trail behind the cabin grew thicker with wildflowers. Hummingbirds returned to the old feeder. One morning, a neighbor left a small bundle of fresh eggs at my doorstep with a note that simply read, "Welcome home." Not thank you, not sorry. Just welcome. The difference meant everything. And one final thing. I added a second name to the wooden post that marked the entrance to the property. Below Harris Cabin, EST, 1997. Carved, reclaimed. 2025 remembered forever because it wasn't just about winning. It was about remembering. And now. Now every footstep on this land feels like a heartbeat again. Every creak of the floorboards. A whisper of those who came before. I don't lock the door the same way anymore. Not because I don't care, but because I'm not scared. Because I know. Now whatever tries to walk in without permission, I'll be here, waiting, and this time, I won't be quiet.